Coming up on the Razzbowl Fantasy Football Podcast, we discuss players you must avoid, third and fourth round busts. Before we do, we want to let you know that the Razzbowl 5 is officially, signups are going to close tomorrow. Go to the Razzbowl website, go sign up for the Razzbowl, a super great fun league, best ball, a lot of fun, slow draft. You're going to love it. You're going to play against us, all the writers at Razzbowl, a bunch of people in the industry, so go sign up for the Razzbowl. But let's get into the potential round 3 and 4 busts starting right now on the Razzbowl Fantasy YouTube channel. Bring it back, one of the, I guess, my old flame at this point. I mean, like, we're rekindling the romance on Razzbowl Fantasy today. It's Gladys L. Tyler. Go follow her at Gladys L. Tyler on Twitter. Gladys, I miss you. How are you doing?
Doing good. How have you been?
Oh, just, it's here. Training camps are here. Like, honestly, I'm celebrating right now. Honestly, there's real football conversations. Kadarius Toney got hurt right on cue. Perfect. Like, honestly, I mean, like, insane. Like, it's like, I could have called that. It makes my life easier. Now I don't have to worry about him anymore. I'm not going to deal with him in fantasy football. He should be back for week 1, but that should do some nice stuff for Travis Kelce and Sky Moore. Now, Glass, we haven't had you on the show in a while. Anything going on with football right now? Anything that you want to talk about? Anything that you haven't had a chance to talk about on the podcast in a while? Anything that comes to mind?
Let's see. I think that we should talk about how. No, we'll talk about that later because you have them on your list, Breece Hall. How the Hard Knocks is going to be. Oh my God, Kel surprise. Aaron Rodgers and the Jets. No one could have predicted that. No one could saw that coming. No one knew it would happen. What? It's crazy.
I love it. I love it. Hey, I'm into it. Aaron, sorry, Aaron. Hey, it is what it is, dude. You made a whole spectacle about going to the Jets. Well, now you get to be on Hard Knocks, and we get to watch you in every. I can't wait for the Breece Hall and Garrett Wilson ADP to skyrocket because you know those guys are going to be fan favorites. It's going to be insane. So I unfortunately probably won't have a lot of those guys.
Yeah, I mean, well, Breece Hall isn't he on the pups, so he probably won't even be participating except on the sidelines.
For how long?
Yeah, I mean, true. Darren Waller got married to Kelsey Plum from the Aces.
Look at that. Honestly, I love how you bring the pop culture into this. This is why we missed you, Gladys. I'm too fixated on football nonsense.
It's football.
No, but I like how it's a pop culture. It's now there's gonna be a whole new different genre of people to watch our show now. Thank you, Gladys. You just expanded our demos. I love every second of it. All right. Today we're gonna talk about the five most overrated picks in rounds 3 and 4. And basically, I'm gonna be comparing my top 150 to ADP that you could find on Razzbowl.com. And by the way, guys, go check out the ADP tool. We have 7 different ADPs all combined to one consensus. You actually can download the ADP and look at and filter on which one you want. You can actually filter on the site. It is a fantastic tool. Go check it out on Razzbowl. We have our top 200 ADP. And I'm comparing my latest 4.0 top 150 to this. And we're going to get into the 5 players that I'm lowest on based on the current ADP. And let's get into it. And at first, kind of a mirrored theme from last week. If you heard the episode from our top 5 busts in the first 2 rounds, this one kind of goes similar with this. And I kind of dove into a little deeper. It's DeVonta Smith. Currently, I have him ranked 40th overall. ADP has him at 26, so I'm 14 spots lower than him. And when you look at deep dive into 2022, it starts getting really interesting about DeVonta Smith. First off, the 5 games without Dallas Goedert, he averaged 15.8 PPR points per game, would have been wide receiver 12 last year. So he performed a lot better in the games without Dallas Goedert than he did with Dallas Goedert. However, this is something with my crazy in-depth looking at this weird stuff and trying to find angles and wherever we can. In the 2 games with Gardner Minshew last year, which is wild, okay? He had 12.5 targets per game, 114 yards per game, 25.9 PPR points per game. That's absurd. In the 2 games with Minshew was like, DeVonta Smith, let's get it done out here. And so when you actually look at the games where he played with Dallas Goedert and with Jalen Hurts, it's 10 games. He averages 6.9 targets, 55 yards receiving, and only 12.6 PPR points per game. That had been wide receiver 31 last year. Now, I have him a lot higher than that. I do have him at 20. I think he's I think this offense will get a little better, but it's just like that starting point changes everything for me. Goddard's healthy heading into the season. Gardner Minshew's gone now. It's going to probably be Jalen Hurts. hopefully for the whole season. So that's why I'm a little bit lower than him. But Gladys, give us your thoughts. Are you leaning more towards the top half of the third round, or are you closer to where I am with DeVonta Smith?
I'm actually higher than the top half of the third round. I think DeVonta Smith should go in the second round. I think that last year there was a couple factors. Last year, first, him and Brown accounted for 55.6% of the target shares. Brown, at the end of the season last year, came up with kind of a hip injury. I'm not saying he's not going to play. I'm not going to say it's not going to slow him down. I'm just saying that is something to be cognizant of. Also, because the Eagles were so far ahead at halftime, Jalen Hurts passed for 5 or fewer times in the fourth quarter in neutral form. So he had like an 83% passing percentage in the first half, and then in the fourth quarter, it went down to like 19%. I think that their schedule is going to be a lot more competitive this year, which means a lot more pass attempts in the third and fourth quarter, which means a lot more pass attempts for DeVonta Smith. I believe that Smith and Brown are one of the two best sets of wide receivers in the game. And I think he is going to ball out because I think they're going to need him to ball out this year.
Okay, so from that perspective then, are you taking DeVonta Smith ahead of guys like T. Higgins, Keenan Allen, Amari Cooper, DK Metcalf?
Keenan Allen, yes. What were the other ones? DK Metcalf, probably because of the third wide receiver they have there, and I'm not even sure that they're going to let Geno Smith cook this year. He's going behind Garrett Wilson, Amon-Ra, and Jalen Waddle. I totally agree with that. I would take him after Garrett Wilson. I would take him after Amon-Ra. I would take him after Jalen Waddle. But I think he should go above Keenan Allen, who has – DeVonta Smith has been proved to be durable for 3 years. Keenan Allen, not so much. I'm taking him above Keenan Allen. I'm taking him above Metcalf. And who's your third one?
T. Higgins.
T. Higgins, it depends. Like if I'm playing best ball and I don't have any shares of Chase or Burrow, no, I'm taking T. Higgins all day long. But for a redraft, I am taking DeVonta Smith above T. Higgins, yes.
Gotcha. All right. Let's jump down to the next one. This one's more injury related. Of course, it's that darling Breece Hall. Currently, I have him ranked 49th overall, and ADP has him at 30th. People are still drafting this guy almost as if he was 100% healthy. And so I just wanted to take a look. So we did a study last year on injury discounts. Is it fool's gold or you find hidden gems? Essentially was the whole purpose of the article. And if you just isolate the running backs from our sample, there's only 4 running backs that were drafted consistently, according to Fantasy Football Calculator. I know people, but it's the only one that had historical mock draft data. I mean, ADP data going back like 10 years. 4 running backs were drafted in that sample. And it was Dalvin Cook, Saquon Barkley, J.K. Dobbins, and Gus Edwards from an ACL specifically. Now, if you start factoring Achilles, you get guys like Cam Akers in there, etc. But just someone to look at ACLs. On average, they finished 15 spots lower in points per game in PPR than their ADP in positional ADP. That is insane. That's a lot. That's like basically 2 full rounds lower. And that's Saquon Barkley and Dalvin Cook type players. It's not just, middle of the road kind of guys. Now, 11 of the 12. Now, when you look at the whole sample and you just look at guys who are drafted at top 12 in their position, okay? So that's what currently Breece Hall is being drafted, top 12 running back in ADP. 11 of the 12 failed to return value at their ADP, and 5 of the 12 finished in the top 12. So for the most part, 11 out of the 12 didn't even meet their ADP and positional ADP, and only 5 of them actually finished as a top 12 player at the position. So the higher and more aggressive you get on these injured players and pushing them up their positional rankings, the less likely you'll get the return. And so I understand. And the Jets, their offensive line is average to below average. I know Rodgers is there, but I don't think that Breece, and by the way, SixScore.com has Breece Hall at 65%. So they basically say if he's a 1,000-yard rusher, you can expect 650 yards this season. So I'm fading him at the 30th overall pick. What do you think, Gladys? Are you closer to 49th at my rank or 30th overall?
I'm closer to 49th. I think that he's being way overvalued. He had a really, really good 6.5 games, like a really good 6.5 games. There's argument that if he had been healthy the whole time, he probably would have been Rookie of the Year. But his ACL injury was in October, and according to Pro Football Doc and the Fantasy Doc, his SIC score, his 6 score right now is 37. They watched him in OTAs. He had straight line acceleration, but no deceleration, and he wasn't making any cuts. And they are saying that no matter what they're saying out of camp, he doesn't look even close to being 100%. And the fact that they put him on a pup kind of worries me just a little. I mean, it could have been, for all bells and whistles. But even the guys that came back from ACLs, it took them not the year that they came back, but the year after that they came back. It took 2 years for them to recover. And I think people are just it's the Aaron Rodgers bump, and it's the bump because he was so good in his first 6.5 games. But yeah, I'm closer to your 49th than I am to the 30th ADP.
All right. I got to tell you this. I'm in on Breece Hall long term. Like, I just love it. He's awesome. He looked awesome. And Aaron Rodgers will probably be there a year or two, maybe 3 at the most. But I honestly, if I was a dynasty manager and I knew the team was a win now team, I may make an offer for Breece Hall to get him. But I in redraft, no freaking way. And by the way, Gladys, your buddy Jamie says hi.
What up, Jamie?
As always, Jamie's checking in. Shout out to Jamie as always. Thanks for joining. Jamie, we're reviewing top 5 busts in rounds 3 and 4. And so far, we've gone through Breece Hall and DeVonta Smith, and Gladys agrees with me one of them and not the other, but I'm going to force you to go back and watch the rest of the episode. Anyway, all right, let's get into number 3 here. It's Deebo Samuel. And now Deebo, I have him at 59th. ADP has him at 35th. And I'm actually surprised about his ADP. Last year, he kind of regressed from 2 years ago. Had, obviously in points per game on a per game basis outside the top 24 wide receivers, but now he's going in the 3rd round. Now, Brock Purdy's a good play. Brock Purdy was very good at executing the offense last year. And so if you look at the 6 games, though, with Brock Purdy, he was averaging 12.8 PPR points per game, and he was the wide receiver 30. Like, now Brock Purdy isn't getting any reps in camp right now because I know he avoided the pup, but he's nowhere ready to be throwing consistently yet. And I just have this weird feeling. This guy was a 7th round pick, Purdy, and basically he surprised the world. Now he's getting 0 reps, though, coming off an arm injury. And now we're expecting that he is able to support Kittle at cost, Deebo, Ayuk, CMC. And I'm just having a hard time believing. I'm siding on the air side of caution that this passing attack might need to take a backseat. Now, Deebo could help with the running game, but when you have a healthy Elijah Mitchell and CMC, it's hard to imagine how many carries Deebo's going to get. So if you look at the target distribution in those 6 games, he only averaged 6.7 targets, which would have been 113 on the season for a 17-game pace. That is less than what he had 2 years ago on a 16-game pace of 121. And his red zone work went way down. So what the biggest impact for CMC was, CMC became the focal point in the red zone, which actually hurt Deebo Samuel, which is going to cap his touchdown upside. So I think that I didn't realize I was 24 spots lower on Deebo until I did this exercise, but I am way off on him. And pretty much most of the 49ers, I think that there's just too many mouths to feed with a guy coming off an arm injury. But what do you think, Gladys? Are you taking Deebo in the back of the 3rd, 3-4 turn? Or are you getting closer to where I am at 59th overall?
I'm not taking Deebo at all. I think that Deebo got the bump from his one good year, and it's an outlier. Like, he had 2021 was an exceptionally good year, but it was one exceptionally good year. 2022, he averaged something like 3.6 was his touchdown ratio. He dropped like 1.4 points on his touchdown ratio. CMC and Deebo Samuel occupy the same space. CMC is going to overshadow Deebo all the same time. Deebo, the 2021 year was good because he had that rushing ability. That's CMC. And CMC also has the passing ability. I don't see a team that was like 26 in passing attempts, and they have Kittle, and they have Ayuk, and they have maybe Purdy. And I think that the league is going to catch up with Purdy anyway, so I don't think that they're going to be throwing even the 26 most times on a passing attempts. I think that Deebo Samuel is not on my draft list currently.
Okay. All right, 2 for 1. I like. We're getting back to it. We started off slow, but me and you are now 2 and 1, baby. I'm feeling hot. Let's go to the next one. It's Jahmyr Gibbs, and so I got to admit, there's a couple guys that I've been over the last few weeks kind of like trying to figure out get a better grasp of, because when I put the top 150 together, it's a lot of historical stuff, and now with training camps rolling out, it's like, okay. The first thing I want to talk about with Jahmyr Gibbs is I am 14 spots lower. He's currently going 37th ADP. I have him at 51st overall. And so I wanted to look at Jared Goff, because a lot of people are going to talk Jahmyr Gibbs like, oh, he's the next Alvin Kamara. Dan Campbell was, and I'm guilty of this too, I'll admit. Like, Dan Campbell coached with the Saints when they used Kamara. And I just have a hard time. Like, I understand the thought process, because Dan Campbell can use him as Kamara, but Kamara was with Drew Brees. And Drew Brees is like this all-time Hall of Fame quarterback who, by the way, in the latter half of his career became the most check down happy running back passing quarterback ever. Just checking down like him and Tom Brady, checking down at an elite level. Jared Goff's not that guy. Jared Goff's never been that guy. Todd Gurley was a workhorse, and he never had over 100 targets in a season, right? So, and now you're going to be splitting work with David Montgomery. Now, over the last 2 seasons in Detroit, he has been a little bit more checking down the running backs with DeAndre Swift, for example. So just 2 years ago, he had 122 targets with the running backs last year, which was his best of his career, which is solid. However, when you look at the games with Swift, when he played with Amon-Ra St. Brown and TJ Hockenson in 2022, and this is important because remember, TJ Hockenson, like Amon-Ra St. Brown got hurt early on in the season, and then TJ Hockenson basically got traded midway through the season. So when you isolate there was only a handful of games with both those guys played. The first thing you notice is DeAndre Swift's targets go way down. So he was only averaging about 4.2 targets per game in those games. So I just feel like when you have the guys on the field, when you factor in that you got Sam Laporta now, which, by the way, Brock Wright, who replaced TJ Hockenson last year, averaged like 1.7 targets per game. If you think Sam Laporta is going to get 1.7 targets per game, I don't know what to do for you. You know what I mean? I don't know. I expect it is what it is. Anyway, so, but when I look at his situation, I do think it's more like Miles Sanders from a few years ago when he was paired with Jordan Howard as a rookie. And if you want to go way back, it's Gio Bernard. Remember Gio way back in, I think it was 2013 when he was paired with Ben Jarvis Green Ellis. Yeah. Both those guys were very solid for fantasy football, though. 13.7 and 14.1 PPR points per game. Even 2 years ago, though, if you look at, or 3 years ago, DeAndre Swift with Adrian Peterson, when AP was in Detroit, he got a bunch of work too. He averaged about 14.9. So I think those numbers are, those are like low-end RB2 numbers pretty much. So that's why I think I'm not going to get as aggressive. People are drafting him probably closer to top 15 at this ranking. But what's your thoughts on Gibbs? Do you have him closer to the 37th at the 3-4 turn, or are you closer to me at 51?
I was closer to his ADP. Like last season, the Lions running backs had the 5th most carries in the league. They scored the most rushing touchdown scores. That was Jamal Williams. And then they had the 9th most targets. Gibbs is like slight. He's like, what, 5'9"? It's not a really big guy. And even in Bama, he was only on field for like 50% of the snaps. Like he wasn't the workhorse back that you perceive to be RB1. And I think that there was a stat that when he was hit like within 2 yards of scrimmage, he only got like he only averaged like 2.2 yards per carry. So he's not going to bully anyone. You're going to have to rely on his receiving and his running. And I think with Amon-Ra there, and when Williams gets off his suspension for gambling, I don't think that the running backs are going to be as much in force as they were drafted or they are put there to be. I don't have confidence in either him or Montgomery at the present time. I think the only thing that makes me slightly optimistic is their splits last year were so bad. Like Detroit's passing game splits were so bad for home versus away, but their running splits stayed pretty much the same. So on away games, I would probably play them, but at home, I'm not. They're going to air the ball out.
Okay. Yeah, it's good insight. Honestly, I think with Gibbs, for me, it's just I think people are getting aggressive on the rookie running back thing. And I think the other thing about this, too, is a lot of people tie in. I love how when people do like, oh, well, since 2000 blank, top 12 running backs drafted in the first round. Of course, top 12. Like, yeah, that's incorporating top 5 picks. Like, if you want to take a more realistic approach, why don't you look at the middle of the first round running backs? That's like CJ Spiller type players. They don't finish in the top 10. Like, I understand that guys like Todd Gurley and Zeke Elliott and Saquon Barkley and Leonard Fournette all had really good seasons their rookie years. But, like, let's get real. Like, they're not going to use Gibbs like a workhorse. Those guys were workhorse running backs. And David Montgomery's going to have a role, but also David Montgomery's going to demand more targets. Like, I don't know why Jamal Williams, they just completely did not even use him at all as a receiver, because Jamal Williams actually caught passes for the Packers a few years ago. So I don't know if they just take David Montgomery and say, hey, sorry, we know you can catch passes and you're actually decent in pass pro. We're not going to use you, though. I have a hard time believing that. So I think I'm a little lower on Gibbs because of that. But I think we're 3-1. I think that's what I heard. And I'm excited to head out. This last one, who cares? I can lose and I'm still in. I'm still on the winning cap. All right. So last one's DeAndre Hopkins. And so this is one of the guys that in my next iteration is going to go up my rankings. And I will get a little more aggressive on DeAndre Hopkins, but 45th overall is absurd. And I just want to talk about DeAndre. So currently ADP 45th according to Razzbowl Fantasy Football ADP. And rank is right now mine is 70th. I do believe I'm a little low on him. I'll probably bump him up ahead of a few guys, so I admit that. However, 45th is still absolutely way too aggressive. And so when you look at DeAndre Hopkins, over the last 3 seasons, he played for a Cardinals offense who averaged 41.6 dropbacks per game, okay? Now he's moving to the Titans, who, by the way, over the same time frame only averaged 33. So that's 8 less dropbacks per game. If you think about that, if a guy's a 25% target share guy, that's like 2 targets a game almost. So that's going to impact his fantasy output. So, but here's the best thing, right? So look at the 2020 Titans. This is, if you want to get as optimistic as possible, you have to look at 2020 Titans with Ryan Tannehill was just balling out of his mind. A.J. Brown was a top 10 wide receiver. Corey Davis was a top 32 wide receiver. They were doing awesome. However, A.J. Brown did that on 7.6 targets. That's almost 2 targets less than DeAndre Hopkins has averaged in his career. So if you just apply DeAndre Hopkins' career catch rate, yards per target, and also his touchdown rate to those 7.6 targets from A.J. Brown's 2020 season, he averages 13.3 PPR points per game, which would have been wide receiver 27 and 22. Okay. Current ADP has him at 20. I have him at 30. And hence why I'm going to bump him up a little bit. So I do think he's still a high-end wide receiver 3, but I am not going to take him at 20 because that volume is not going to be there. Treylon Burks, Chig Okongwu, and of course, this is still Derrick Henry's offense. But what's your thoughts, Gladys? DeAndre Hopkins, are you closer to ADP at 45 or my rank at 70?
I'm probably going to be closer to your rank at 70. But like you said, I think he should be bumped up a little bit higher than that.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, Arizona had the 4th most pass. They were the 4th most pass-heavy team. Now he's going to Tennessee, which was the 5th most run-heavy team. Hopkins relied on being on the field like 90+% for snaps. No, Tennessee is known for rotating their wide receivers, and even when they had A.J. Brown, even when they had Robert Woods, 83% were the most they spent on the field. So we know that they're going to rotate Hopkins with Burks and probably just Burks because the 3 name guy is not really good. But I don't see that he's not going to get the 96 targets that he got last year, even in and that was in 9 games he played in because he was out the 6 and then he was out the 2. So in 9 games he had 96 targets. There's no way. I don't think he's going to get 96 targets if he plays the full load of games. You have the tight end, which is what's his name?
Chig Okongwu.
Okongwu,
baby.
Okongwu. He ran a 33.3% targets per route run, which was 2nd in the league. He had 3.26 yards per route run, which was 1st in the league. Why wouldn't you rely on that big body guy, especially with Tannehill's diminishing returns on being a really good quarterback? Plus, they'll probably put the Kentucky kid in there sooner rather than later.
Yeah.
I don't think that. I think Hopkins is there to boost the offense, but he's not there to be the alpha that he was with Kyler Murray in Arizona.
And I think the other aspect of this too is I want to be optimistic, but now he's on the wrong side of 30. So even taking his historical rates is probably not the best practice on my I probably should just keep him where I have him. But I do believe that that Hopkins is still playing pretty well at a high level. And we've seen guys like Larry Fitzgerald, for example. We just kept saying, this is the year Larry Fitz is going to suck. And then he was this huge value for like literally 5 years straight. And I just think that Hopkins continues to perform on the field. We saw the latter half of last year. He was awesome. So I want to give him the benefit of the doubt, but 20 is absolutely insane. Like, this guy is not going to get the volume for that. It's not
I don't think it's his performance on the field that we are diminishing. I think it's the fact that Tennessee isn't going to throw the ball enough for him to excel at what he does best. So it's not necessarily him. It's the system. Like, if he had gone to KC, I definitely would have, like, bumped him up to, like, 20th. But where he is now, the volume's just not going to be there. I mean, there's no reason to believe that Vrabel's going to go all of a sudden and go, let's just let Tannehill chuck that baby. With Derrick Henry there? No. I mean, that's crazy talk.
Yeah, I agree. All right, that's it. I think we have 4-1. That's not too bad. I like it though. And just Gladys decided to do the first one. She just was upset with me about some things. She just the first one. She goes, I'm not gonna let it happen. All right, that was our 5. So our 5 today on this show. Make sure you follow us, subscribe to Razzbowl Fantasy on YouTube, IG, and TikTok. Our big 5 for this episode was DeVonta Smith, Breece Hall, Deebo Samuel, Jahmyr Gibbs, and DeAndre Hopkins. Let us know your thoughts. Do you think they're overrated picks in rounds 3 and 4? Now, Gladys, before we close out the show, tell the people where they can find your content and what do you got upcoming next on Razzbowl and everywhere you write.
So on Razzbowl, I have training camp people that you need to keep an eye out for on defensive side, because these men are their training camp are going to prove whether they are worth your time or not. On going for 2, I have the NFC West fantasy relevant players coming out, or the NFC East is coming out. The NFC West I'm writing now. So, but check on Razzball, because you guys, we are bringing defense sexy back. Well, that's what we're doing. That is my only goal this whole season, besides winning, is to make defense sexy again. And it's going to happen. It's going to happen.
I like it. I feel like I'm under-sexing defense. So I feel you. I think this is nice that you're here to help. I don't know what the right terminology was, and this channel is probably going to get canceled because that statement. Anyway, that's all we got today, folks. Before I get kicked off the world, I'm out of here. Once again, make sure you follow us across at Razzbowl Fantasy on YouTube, IG, and TikTok. I'm your host, Bobby LaMarco. You can follow me at Bobby LaMarco on Twitter. And go follow Gladys, by the way, Gladys L. Tyler on Twitter. And don't forget to sign up for the Razzbowl, folks. Sign-ups end tomorrow. Make sure you jump on. It's super fun. You're going to love it. Razzbowl is a best ball tournament with all the industry experts. You're going to love it. So go join right now. Thank you for joining once again. We are out of here.